Good morning. Now, I'm not being hostile. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm not trying to exalt myself above God by saying I'm so clever because I know anything about the Bible. I know anything about this. I know you Jews are going to be blessed and I'm the one who's the clever one who's going to tell you that. I'm not about that. I'm about Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm on about Jesus coming again. And Jesus can make somebody humble enough to give you that message without it hurting your feelings. He can actually teach somebody to be that sensitive to understand what you've been through. He can put somebody through that so that they can understand exactly where you're coming from and be a good mother, a good Deborah, a good prophet for you to help you through these times that we're going to be going through. And we are going to be looking at the book of Revelation, the 7 churches. But first of all, I want to open something that in the Bible it's called Paul the Apostle. I know I've heard rumours that Jews don't like Paul, but he wrote some lovely things. And I'm going to give you a prime example. And you already know this in your whole spirit anyway. You don't need me to tell you this. I've known Jews and I know I respect them enormously. You don't need this. It's just to let you know that Paul was a Pharisee, wasn't he? And he knew the Old Testament, and God used him because he knew it so well. And then he taught him the new way of the New Testament. Let me just read something from the New Testament, from the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 13, verses 4 up until the end of 8. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will cease. They will be stilled, actually, not cease, but stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. So love is called the most excellent way. Love, faith, and hope are qualities that Paul talks about in his letters to the new Christians when they first became Christians. He wasn't a disciple. He fell out with them actually at one time. But he had a road to Damascus experience where God appeared to him and blinded him when he wasn't believing in Jesus, and he was holding the coats for people to stone Christians. He held the coats, and so God blinded him in order to teach him who was the Lord. And I know it's hard to accept. I know it's very difficult. And I know my cross might offend people. I might not be allowed in a synagogue. We'll come to that later. I might not be allowed in a synagogue for wearing a cross because I know it offends you. And it is an offensive thing for you because you felt you were blamed. Jesus doesn't blame, does he? He doesn't keep a record of wrongs. He forgives and he loves you and he cherishes you and he adores you all. He has a heart that breaks for what's going on in Gaza. He loathes those horrendous, so I'm going to swear, those bastards. He hates them with a venom, with a poison. He loathes them because he loves you so much. So I'm going to move on now. Some might say swiftly on, but just try and remember everything I say. I'm not dismissing anything. I think that was a beautiful passage, and I hope you do as well. Revelation begins with 7 churches, and it's basically teaching people how to get ready for Jesus, or Yeshua HaMashiach, when he's coming again. And there are 2 warnings that I'm highlighting for today to teach you. And it's about synagogues of Satan. Now, Satan was called Beelzebub, and Beelzebub is like a swarm of flies. They are like what we're putting up with in Gaza. The devil is like a swarming mass of hatred. What do flies do? They vomit on cheese, they eat it, they spit it out again, they regurgitate it and eat it, and they're just repulsive, repellent creatures, just like those bastards in Gaza. And that's how God would describe them, as they vomit on their own vomit and eat it and vomit on it and eat on it and vomit. And they're so full of revolting practices that they are despicable. And we need to get rid of them. And we need to pray for an offensive against them that'll obliterate them and annihilate them and get rid of them once and for all, so that we can enjoy peace and love and joy afterwards. All the fruits of the Spirit, which is another story, but we need to eradicate them so love can grow and we can have an eternal kingdom without any despot, without any despicable me's. That's what each of them are, despicable. Every one of them is a despicable me. That's all they think about, their tummy, their money. That's all they're like a usurping, what's that? There's a leech. So the body of Christ is like the important thing that you're in. You're grafted in. You are the olive branch we are grafted in because we're new, but you are the olive tree. Anybody who's a new believer in Yeshua HaMashiach, in Jesus, they are grafted in. But they want to suck the living daylights out of you like a leech. They want to cling to it and take every nourishment. They want to starve us. They want to rape us. They want to pillage us. They deserve annihilation and nothing more. That's all they deserve. They're like vacuums that just suck the living daylights out of everything they can touch. And they are untouchables. They are revolting, repellent bastards. And they don't like me. They want to rape me and sodomize me in gangs, the whole lot of them. So I'm in a very vulnerable situation. But let's move on anyway. Let's just go on to something that is a teaching thing. I don't like where I live. Anyway, here we go. To the church in Smyrna. I don't know where that is. I don't know. I'm not very clever. To the angel of the church in Smyrna write, these are the words of him who is the first, that's Genesis, and the last, that's Revelation, who died and came to life again. I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. I know about the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. And that was from Revelation 2, verse 9. And now I'm moving to chapter 3 in Revelation, and I'm looking at verse 9. And that's just verse 9, just one verse again, and they're both verse 9s anyway. Let me go to it. I will make those who are the synagogue of Satan, that's the devil, Beelzebub or Hamas, whoever Satan is. He rules the roost and he's always tried to persecute the living daylights out of you. I will make those who are the synagogue of Satan, who claim to be Jews, though they are not, but are liars, I will make them come and fall down at your feet and acknowledge that I have loved you, since you have kept my command to endure patiently. I will also keep you from the hour of trial that is going to come on the whole world to test the inhabitants of the earth, which is what is going. This is what we are going through. This is, you see, the nice thing when John went to the island of Patmos, when he was exiled, God kept him alive to give him this. It's all like an Old Testament visions in Revelation, and he gave him the key to the future to teach you and us and everybody who believes and follows the word of God, the holy word, the word, everybody who follows, is to teach them the way through, as if you were going through a little gate, the way through into the kingdom of the future. And the book of Revelation holds many secret codes and images and signs, and it talks about signs and wonders, and I paint signs to help you know that Jesus is here today. Yeshua HaMashiach lived after he was resurrected in spirit. And you have that spirit because David had that spirit. He was a prophet. David was a prophet. Deborah was a prophet. There are prophets all the way through. And John, who wrote the book of Revelation, was also a prophet. So you do get prophecy in the New Testament, which is God speaking. So God speaks in the Old Testament. He does very loudly and clearly. We know about Ezekiel, and we know about Elijah and Jeremiah crying and crying and crying. We know he was the weeping one, don't we? We know all about people hearing from God. And I hear from you quite loudly because you have the Spirit. I don't know if you hear from me. I email in all the time because of the horrendous state of affairs that are going on. And it's global, but there's hope. There is. You will go back to your own border. From the four corners of the earth, the angels are going to gather together all the Jews and take them back to the promised land and take them to the Holy Land, all in good time. The timing of which I don't know, but I don't know. I'd like to be out of this country within 3 weeks myself, but I don't know. God provides financially for things like that. I don't like this, what's going on in the UK at all. Keir Starmer is bribed by Islam. And what's going to happen to him when they're fed up with him, when they've used him to his full extent to further the system of the beast, which is in Revelation, they're just going to hang him. And I told them at Downing Street, the police, I said, you tell him he's going to get hung. And I made up a song on the way back. I can't remember it, but I got the message home. He's going to get hung and he needs to know there's nothing he can do about it. Prayer won't change it. When they were voted in, Labour, 40% of them abstained from making a pledge or a vow or an oath on the Holy Bible. And because of that, that's why we're in trouble now, because they don't respect God. I went past the Cabinet Office and I said that to somebody. Well, I don't believe in it anyway. Well, more fool them, because they're going to go to hell. And hell is eternal. Maggots eat them and they burn for the whole of eternity. And that's what's going to happen to Hamas. So that's why I get a bee in my bonnet. So basically, I want to move on because I had a prophecy years ago, believe it or not, where I was told that, amongst other things, I'd be a handmaiden of Israel. So I've always gone out of my way, and my childhood was pretty diabolical in many ways. So I know what it's like to feel persecuted. And the living daylights out of me, really. She wanted us dead because she was jealous, and they died. The siblings died, but they were bastards anyway. They were illegitimate. But because I was born in wedlock, I was rescued, and somebody said a blessing over me when I was 3, which meant that I could get through all of that trauma that I went through as a child. I had years of therapy because it was so diabolical what she put us through. Don't go there. She loved Hitler. She loved him. Anyway, don't go there. That was another story. Anyway, I thought I must get to know what Jews are like. So I thought I'll go to my local synagogue because that's the best way to help and be there and learn to love them and understand what makes them tick. So should I take this off? It's annoying you, I can tell. Anyway, the missing link is a safety pin. What happened? Actually, I'm going to open something up for you now. This is from Jewish Voice. And it came in the post, and they do some beautiful stuff. And I was told in this synagogue I went to, this synagogue of Satan, and it was, oh, you don't give money to them. Don't give money to charities in Israel. You don't know what they're going to spend it on. Well, I'd been donating to charities like One for Israel and Vision for Israel I was looking into, and I was wanted to pump money into Israel because I was concerned. But she said, oh, you don't know what it's spent on. What kind of a Jew would say, don't put money into Israel? You don't know what... Anything that gets spent in Israel is of benefit. That was a bit quirky. Then there was another thing. One of them, this Rosh Hashanah certificate from Amanda, and they want money. And I wish I had money. I'd love to pump all my money into Israel, and I will. I'll paint for paintings for Israel. I'll write music. Money go in. Hanukkah, Sukkot, Yom Kippur, and Rosh Hashanah. And they want money for those things, which is wonderful. That's 4 envelopes for money. I'll keep them there and send some money over. But I was dissuaded away from doing that by the rabbi's wife. The rabbi's wife said, you don't know what that money... Well, anyway, we move on. There was this one chap, and he had dreadlocks under his kippah. And they didn't have their own kippah. They had like a library where they pick one up on the way in, wear it, and drop it off on the way out. They're ashamed in many ways, aren't they? Obviously, there's something wrong. Why can't you wear your kippah all the time? Why does it get dumped at the door before you go out? Not even the rabbi wore one. And they were so scruffy. And one day we had this lovely couple. They weren't married, but they were so smart and elegant and stylish. And I said, isn't it nice to dress up for the Lord on Shabbat? Yes, and they looked around. They never came back again. They were wise because he wore a cardigan to talk about in the synagogue of Jacob, and he didn't wear a jacket, and he didn't wear a tie. He didn't wear anything. It was very bizarre, very bizarre. And I move on because I celebrated Purim with them, and we had to go in fancy dress. So I dressed in my fleecy red pajamas that say up to snow good. And I wore my cross, and I wore a dressing gown and slippers. I walked all the way up there, got a few giggles when I got there. Now I really enjoyed Purim, and I got the fits of giggles every time Haman, when they bet the rattles. I found it so fantastic. I couldn't control myself laughing. We all got quite infectious, us ladies, as we sat behind the veil, the net curtain behind the window. And I found it quite hysterical that we were getting him out, Haman, and I loved it so much. But then, and I was fasting that day anyway. I just felt like a fast. But they went and had their food afterwards, and I left them to it. I left them eating. But then the next time I went back, in the meantime, I went to Golders Green, and I went to a fantastic synagogue, and I read a book in there that Pharaoh actually bathed in the blood of Hebrew babies. And also, not only that, I read that he built the wall and put the Hebrew babies in the wall as bricks. And I thought, the plot thickens, doesn't it? And you think, what on earth? So I thought, I'm going back to that synagogue, even though I struggled. And she showed me a photograph of the rabbi's wife, of what she used to look like. She wore a wig all the time. And I thought maybe that's a Jewish thing, maybe she's not allowed to have proper hair. I didn't know what was going on. And she kept itching and scratching it. And then she showed me a photograph, like a passport photo. And she looked like Rosemary West. And I said, oh, you look like Rosemary West. And she laughed like she was quite pleased. Or she didn't say, no, I'm not, nothing like her. She smiled and laughed. And I thought that was a bit strange. And every time I raised a safeguarding concern, talking about, because I love children and I've worked with children for many years, and every time I talked about children and vulnerable children and abused children, a stony silence came across them. And they would eavesdrop on what I said, and they didn't really know where to put themselves. And there were 2 boys once in that synagogue, but there weren't any other children. And I've got a very nasty, sneaking suspicion that there was some abuse against children going on because of the awkwardness, the silence, the stunned sort of, they didn't like me talking and loving children. So that was something else. There were other things. That's it. He used to say, you must be proud to be a Jew. You must be proud of it. And I was up there with the women above the shul or synagogue, and I was thinking, I don't know if pride's the right thing really, because what about the Tower of Babel? Because pride was their downfall. I don't know. And I said something afterwards actually, and his father had been a boxer, a fighter. He was an aggressive man, and this rabbi actually fights people when they threaten him. And I said, and that's another thing, he had a brother who used to come some distance and live in the building and like safeguard it like a caretaker. And he told me that their father, who was this fighter, was a friend of the Crays. And as a little boy, he'd met the Crays. And you know the Cray brothers, Charlie was the good one apparently, and then there was Ronnie and Reggie, and they did their mother's bidding, and one of them was a paedophile, and their dad said, don't go near them. Now I met some odd people who said how lovely they were, but I don't know, some people like a bit of fame and glory and attention from other people's fame, don't they? So it could have been that speaking. I wanted to get to the bottom of it. They were kept in the Tower of London, and the Crays were kept in the Tower of London. He said, this brother said, who do you think was kept in the Tower of London in those days? I said, Ruth Ellis? And he laughed and said, no, the Crays. So they were kept in the Tower of London. Anyway, where was I heading? I was going somewhere with that. I'll pick up on it. It'll come to me. It always does. You know, I lose things sometimes. And when I pray about it, God shows me where they are. All in good time, with patience and diligence, he shows you where things are. And hopefully that's why I'm here to help you find your way through this God-forsaken mess we're in and realize Yeshua HaMashiach is coming again to redeem all Israel. And all those rich people, all those rich bastards don't like it. They're so jealous. So they set all kinds of plots and schemes to try and trip me up and track me down and listen to my thoughts and see what prophecies I'm giving out. So God uses subterfuge to confuse them. and you can actually play on people and not even know you're doing it until God says, nah, that was a joke. I was just using you to deceive them the way they deceive everybody else. God can manipulate just as much as they think they can. You know, the devil has got a feeble mind. God makes geniuses because that's the only way to be a genius, through God. And the only way to be an artist is to glorify God. This is what I try telling people. I was at the Royal Academy yesterday. The art world's gone to pot. Do you know what they were exhibiting in the courtyard outside the Royal Academy of Arts? Down that rich place, opposite that rich place, Fortnum's. A massive, hideous sculpture. And it was made out of excrement. I said, is that what it is? Yes, it is. Don't go near it. It stinks. And this man came in with his children. I said, this is no place for children. They like porn at the Royal Academy. There's something wrong with art today that doesn't glorify Jesus or Yeshua HaMashiach, doesn't glorify God. I mean, the National Gallery stopped in 1900 or stopped art because it went diabolical. Something went wrong. And I don't know if it ended with the post-impressionists. Something went wrong and the devil entered. And I'm going to lead you to a story now, because when I was an art student, I got quite fascinated in the abstract expressionists. And somebody said they liked Mark Rothko because of his colour field work. I thought, well, I'm going to get to the bottom of this and see what makes that art tick. It turns out that the three artists I chose as abstract expressionists who had emigrated from Russia were Rothkowitz was his name, Mark Rothko, and he shortened it to Rothko when he moved to America, and Adolf Gottlieb, and also Barnett Newman, and the three of them were Jews. Now, Rothko came to a messy end because he had no faith in the Messiah. His end was messy because he had no faith in Messiah, in HaMashiach. So do you know how he died? He was a Jew, but he was hopeless because he couldn't see the bright spark of the future. He couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel because he'd just been looking into the Old Testament and he hadn't taken passages like Isaiah 11 to heart and realized that one day the child will they'll play around the viper's nest or the den, and it's just the lion will be able to stroke the lion's mane, and animals will be friendly, and there won't be hostility of the animal kingdom towards mankind, because mankind will grow up and grow out of evil, and all evil will go. And that's the message I've got to give you today. I want to clear up on one more thing from that synagogue of Satan. Oh, I must tell you something else. On Sunday, I went back to that lovely synagogue where I met two women. I was very sad there were only two women there when we were separate from the men. And they were very clever men and very smart, very respectable, lovely boys in there, very lovely, civilized people. And that I went back there to where I learned about Pharaoh bathing in the baby's blood. I thought, I'm going back there. And anyway, I walked in and I fell in love. And what I was wearing on my legs was similar to what I bought down Jaffa in Jerusalem. It was a pair of tight leggings, but mine were like black fake leather, faux leather. I thought, I'm going to wear these and God said, wear them. And I said, I can't wear these, I can't wear these leggings in a synagogue. I can't. And the Holy Spirit, through Yeshua HaMashiach, said, you will wear them. I said, I can't. You must wear them. Wear them. So I listened to God and I got dressed up. I put my t-shirt on back to front so it covered up my naked chest. and I wore what I felt God wanted me to wear. But when I got to the synagogue, I was met with hostility from security. Great hostility. Who are you? Where are you from? Well, the night before synagogue, I thought I'm going to give those ladies a treat because they didn't eat with the men. They left the men to their eating, and because they love their men, but they feed their stomachs. And I thought they deserve a treat, so I made some lemonade. I was up late on the Friday night making a homemade lemonade of a recipe that I made up myself, actually. I might have read it somewhere, but I went out, got more lemons, went out in the dark of night to get more lemons. I got limes and lemons and sugar, and I cooked it on my hot plate, and I made it in my large saucepan. I made an art of it, and I bottled it up. And he said, "What have you got in there?" I said, "It's not poison, it's a lemon love juice." "Oh, you can't come here. What you and it was I was met with hostility anyway. Forgive him for that, because we all need to learn. We can be hostile sometimes to other people, but we do need to learn sometimes. Anyway, I got very upset. I said, next time I come back, I'll wear a dress. And he smiled from ear to ear. And I thought, if he's that hostile and wants me to wear a skirt that badly, is he an upskirter? Is he going to do what the naughty boys do at school and put his mobile camera up my skirt to have a look at what's going on underneath? What's so important that man's rules have to be more important than God's? God said wear trousers, but man said no, you wear a dress, you have a dress code. It's not a club. When I've been to churches wearing a sack, wearing painting overalls in white that painter and decorators use. I've worn all manner of things. Let me tell you, in some churches, everybody's welcome. You don't close the door to anybody. There's no rules about who enters the door. You don't get turned away at most churches, although you do if you're a little bit too much in touch with God and you meet somebody who worships Satan and is a hypocrite and a deceiver. But I'm telling you that you can, if it's a good church, everybody's welcome, because Jesus wants to heal and love absolutely everybody. No exception. No exception to the prostitute. No exception to the slut or the drug taker or the alcoholic. No exception, because when we sin, it's because we've been hurt. And that God can love you He can lead you through a process. Jews are perfect because they know God so well. But the world around us is broken because the devil got in. Take care.